Hey guys, welcome to Star Wars Timeline. My name is Ben. Today we're discussing Star Wars Outlaws with Josh.
Hey man, I'm
How,
excited to be here today.
how are you, Ben? We're doing this, recording this for the second time because we messed up just a minute ago.
Yeah, it shows how long we've been out of the game a little bit. You
Yeah.
gotta kind of knock off the rust before you get started. But I am excited. I'm very excited to be here and talk about this Star Wars Outlaw game. It's going to be, I think, quite a change of pace from what you've seen before. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to get your thoughts.
And of course, we've seen Massive when they released their full gameplay footage. They had their own commentary explaining the game. I guess it's just us two Star Wars fans breaking it down from our point of view. You know, our most wants, our most check boxes that we want to kind of fill. And I'll play a bit of a devil advocate. I'll be a little on the critical side, even though I'm hype on this game as hell. I know you are as well, but I'm pretty sure you have a couple of concerns or issues to single out that we hopefully can kind of fix it up when the game releases, right?
Yeah, and I can say before we get into the gameplay, I'll tell you, we had heard about this. I mean, I could think back to last year when we would kind of do our weekly show. We had heard rumors about an
Yeah.
open world Star Wars game for some time, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of those rumors centered around it being maybe Era of the High Republic or maybe, Old Republic, something like that. And so when this game came out, the actual premise being, during the original trilogy actually was really surprising to me. It was not what I was expecting. So from the get-go, I was a little bit surprised on where they were going with this game. So had to kind of switch my lens, my expectations for what this game
Hmm.
was going to be. And I am excited for what they're going to do. But a little bit of a kind of a surprise for me, at least, about what the game is really going to entail.
Yeah, it's, when they actually showed footage for this game, I sort of breathed out and said, oh, finally, it's not a Jedi-centered
Yeah.
game, which always seems to be the case, the status quo, because the Jedi, the heroes of this franchise, they're rock stars. Everybody wants to rock out with a lightsaber. That's the status quo. That's the fans generally know. And now they're going into this unknown territory, this no man's land. We're going to go with a smuggler game. You're going to play as an outlaw in a free world, freely explored, which actually leads me to my first question before we start, breaking down the game for the guys. I don't want to wait for too long, but generally speaking, since this is an open world game as advertised by Ubisoft, what are some of the open worlds that you truly enjoy, these sandbox experiences that are kind of like the staple for you and you want this game to be able to recapture?
Oh man, that's a tough question because I think where open worlds can be a challenge is open does not always equal enjoyable content, right? It can be it's open and empty, right? There's a lot of games where you can go anywhere and do anything, but they don't really feel very meaningful. The missions you're doing, etc.
Hmm.
So when I think of open world, I kind of like those smaller, more contained spaces, really, where you do have freedom in progression and freedom to explore. But when you do activities, they feel kind of rewarding. So I can think of like in Sony's Spider-Man game
Hmm.
where you have New York City. So it's not the full planet, right? You got New York
Right.
City as your open world, but it's so contained and so kind of full that you feel that satisfaction from completing the tasks, etc. If that makes sense.
Hmm.
I think Cyberpunk did that pretty well. Regardless of performance issues, it did feel like when you were doing things, you kind of were having consequences on the environment, etc. So it's a balancing act, in my opinion, to make your game free and open, but to make the content you're doing actually enjoyable, and you want to continue to explore and travel. So it's a balancing act for me.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So you're sort of a proponent of balance between freedom but also guided storytelling. Yet you feel
Exactly.
you're on this journey and they're really invested into a scripted storyline that has a clear beginning, middle, and end. So by the time of it, you're fully satisfied. You put the controller down, the credits roll, and you feel that the time spent with the game, whether it's 40 hours, 60 hours, 100 hours, that you were fully invested in the adventure. See,
Yeah,
I'm a
that's
tiny
right.
bit, I do enjoy these sort of games, but I'm a bit on the different spectrum of things where I enjoy an open world where you step in it and it's not populated by question marks or exclamations, kind of like the map guiding you where you're supposed to go,
Sure.
but it's like it's a free, clean slate. And adventure awaits behind every corner. So a perfect example I could bring is the Zelda game, Breath of the
Yeah.
Wild. I just
Yeah.
started its sequel, but I did finish the original game fully, and was such a rewarding experience without getting to the actual end or without seeing prolonged, cinematics and heavy lore and storyline. It was just enjoyable to experience that game.
I think Zelda's a good example of where the mechanics are so satisfying
Yeah.
that being in the world, exploring, like it sells itself. You
Mhm.
want to be doing it. You want to be traversing. You want to be interacting with the systems they've built. So that is kind of a good counterexample where it's not, there's not even really that many voice actors in that game, but you
Yeah.
still can't help but travel and be sucked into it. So there's a lot of different ways to I guess be successful in this space, right?
Mhm.
I think as long as you look at the end of the day, if the gameplay is good, that's half the battle, right? So if
Yeah.
you could get there, you've already kind of got us halfway in. So, and we'll I guess get to look. I'm very happy they put out gameplay for this
Yeah.
because just from a cinematic, it's hard to understand what the game will be. So it's very nice. We'll have this to kind of talk about and maybe get a feel for what the actual gameplay loop will be like.
Yeah. So, guys, without further ado, actually, this is the perfect segue. First thing I wanted to look at, we'll quickly go over the synopsis on their actual website. So let's switch gears here and share our screen. And we're right here on the website, right? Star Wars Outlaws, and we're gonna go immediately into the game info. It's just basically you could scroll down. There's obviously trailers there. As we mentioned earlier, they do have kind of like a guided trailer where they explain what the mechanics of the games are and so forth. We are two fans interpreting this information and trying to fill it out with what they're not telling us yet, right?
Mhm.
So about the game. Experience the first ever open world Star Wars game set between the events of The Empire Strikes Back and The Return of the Jedi. Not for the first time, mind you guys, Shadows of the Empire. I don't know if Josh, if you played it, I played just a tiny bit of it, but it's actually a game set in that time frame, was done before. Okay,
Yeah.
just a quick reminder to the fans. Explore distinct planets across the galaxy, both iconic and new. So that's been pretty much sealed. Risk it all as Kay-Vass, a scoundrel seeking freedom and the means to start a new life along her companion Nyx, which Nyx is making waves in the fandom all over right now, just like Grogu did. Fans are adoring the creature, right?
Yeah.
We're going to take a look in the trailer. Fight, steal, and outwit your way through the galaxy's crime syndicates as you join the galaxy's most wanted. If you're willing to take the risk, the galaxy is full of opportunity. Discover Galaxy of Opportunity. Explore distinct planets with bustling cities and cantinas before racing across sprawling outdoor landscapes in your speeder. Each planet brings new adventures, unique challenges, and enticing rewards if you're willing to take the risk. Experience an original scoundrel story. Again, they're reinforcing the idea, right?
Yeah.
It's not a Jedi, it's a scoundrel. Live the high-stakes lifestyle as an outlaw. With Nyx by your side, turn any situation to your advantage. Fight with your blaster, overcome the stealth and gadgets, or find the right moments to distract foes and gain the upper hand. And last but not least, embark on high-stakes missions. Take on high-risk, high-reward missions from the galaxy's crime syndicates. Steal valuable goods, infiltrate secret locations, and outwit enemies as one of the galaxy's most wanted. Every choice you make influences your ever-changing reputation. So there is a reputation system, as we're going to see very briefly. Let's dive right into it. We're going to pause along the way as we're basically explaining it. I want to point out a couple of things. Josh, feel free to stop me at any point. Particular things that you're interested in that caught your attention during the reveal.
Yeah, I'll tell you right before you even hit play.
Mhm.
One thing I'll be very curious on. I really like reputation systems that are done well. I can think of like early on when that was kind of a newer concept, a game like Infamous, which was the game where you were basically a superhero, but you could also be a supervillain depending on things you did. Like I do like when choices have consequences, and I really hope that they feel meaningful, right? I hope it's not a situation where you can do something bad, but in the end, your character is still like a good guy. I really like when they add some meat behind it. So excited by that concept. I hope it's maybe fully fleshed out there because I really do enjoy that in a game.
Right. Another example, obviously, from BioWare's Knights of the Old Republic versus their latter game, Mass Effect, where KOTOR, some of the fans felt was more impactful, but in Mass Effect, its trilogy conclusion kind of felt a little bit more guided and people expected more out of the ending. Anyway, without further ado, let's do this, man.
All right.
So we open up here with that classic.
The copyright strike on its way.
Hopefully not. So, okay, we opened up with this first segment, which kind of gives us the vibe, right? There's a pike helmet there, there's some sort of crystal, and obviously the item of our desire, which our outlaw is after, and Nyx is carrying it in his mouth. So right away, I'm getting personally the vibes of something like Uncharted or Indiana Jones. What did this first sequence do for you?
Yeah, I have to agree. Uncharted was right where my mind went to, given it's kind of a third person
Hmm.
action. You know, will it have the set pieces that Uncharted have? Because when I think of Uncharted, I think of like really well done action set pieces. Right, there's several times in the game you feel like you're watching a movie, but it definitely has that sort of vibe to it. So I think that's a high bar. So if it actually does meet the Uncharted comparison, I'd
Yeah.
be thrilled. But that is actually exactly where my mind went as well.
Yeah, if there's any game you want to compare yourself to is Uncharted, because 4 games in a row they've been knocking it out of the park, man. Absolutely amazing. What I really hope happens here is that they actually deliver on the promise of that diversity and adventure and going to different planets that are really, really separate and different from one another visually in terms of gameplay style. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
always blast your way through. I want to go on the Tomb Raider ride and go through these ruins and just explore different cultures.
Yeah, I agree. And it seems like, I won't, we'll get there in a second, but it does seem like maybe there's optionality in playstyle, maybe
Mhm.
more of a stealth approach versus guns blazing. So if the environment can be conducive to one versus the other, I always enjoy that kind of freedom as well.
Yeah,
So
as Tomb Raider fans usually like to say that the stage, the main hero of the game, is the level, is the
sure.
open world
Yeah.
you're in.
Yeah. I like that.
Hmm. So we're moving on here. This little Nyx creature is very expressive. The animations on it are
Yes.
just
Yep.
amazing. And it looks like it's a cinematic right in the middle of the mission, right? Because we're going to cut right into the gameplay.
Yep.
We meet our heroine. And what I really enjoy here, I hit pause. As soon as we go into the first gameplay seconds, immediately it's stealth. She says,
Yes.
let's
Yep.
go get paid, right? So what are the thoughts here on the character design? How did you feel about it? How did you feel about this approach to the gameplay reveal where they want to emphasize stealth first and action later?
Yeah, so a couple things stick out. First of all, from her design, Kay, I actually really like the look of her. I like the feel of her. She seems really fresh and fun.
Hmm.
I like that the pikes are brought in. Like that makes sense. Like they're hint. It's not fan servicey in the sense of like, oh hey, it's a callback. It's like no, we've seen through the Clone Wars, we've seen
Hmm.
through even Bad Batch, we've seen in Boba Fett. Like the Pike Syndicate is a large crime family, and they would be
Hmm.
prevalent in these sort of skirmishes and dealings at this time. So that feels totally appropriate for the setting. I will tell you, and I don't want to go too deep on this, but where my mind goes with this character, with this setting, is I want it to feel Andor-esque in the sense of like the
Hmm.
Empire's there. I don't want her running into Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker and helping them out. Like that to me just will feel I don't know. We've seen that. We've seen that. What I liked about Andor is it was in the same universe.
Yeah.
Those battles and those decisions were happening. Those big bads were dealing with their conflicts, etc. But we didn't get in that way, right? We had our own battles to fight. We had our own challenges on here on the ground, and I hope it kind of keeps that feeling,
Hmm.
because I think that is I think it enhances the entire setting of this original trilogy, right? It shows you what other folks were dealing with. If it always kind of leads back to Darth Vader or Luke, to me, you kind of you cheapen that feel. So not to go too deep on that point, but that's a big hope I have for this character and anything she does. I want it to feel like she's just living in the empire controlled world, not that she's going up against Palpatine, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So
No, Josh, you literally read my mind here because this is exactly what I was thinking of. For example, in the Shadows of the Empire video game, which had a complementary novel, you do meet Vader. You do see a little bit of the Emperor,
sure.
and they kind of like isolated to just that. You don't have the full ensemble of familiar characters in there. Yes, there is Luke Skywalker as well.
Mhm.
But the thing is, for this game, I absolutely agree that it sometimes cheapens the experience when you start reintroducing these cameos. Let the main character be
Exactly.
hold the story, hold your attention. And we as fans we already know the time period that it takes place on. And sometimes when you simply just allude to the Emperor or allude
Yes.
to the
Yep.
Darth Vader, and you build that aura, that mythical feel without showing them on screen, that will only add to the character and enhance her. As far as the character design goes, I am absolutely blown away by Cass because she looks believable. She looks like a fantastical character populating the Star Wars universe. And like you automatically, their sense of gravity is like, yeah, I could be her, or I could be somebody, know somebody like her
Yeah.
if I lived in that universe. She sort of kind of has that cockiness that Han projects as well, but she's not trying to copy him. She's not female Han Solo. She has a whole different sense of sensibilities and personalities that we're going to see throughout the trailer.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that as well. And I have some more thoughts, but we'll let it roll and we'll get into it here in a second.
Absolutely. So as we mentioned before, the developers clearly want to emphasize this. There's going to be a lot of stealth in this game because this is how we open up. So she's sneaking, blasting this Pike guy in the face. By the way, speaking of excellent animations, there was a really weighty, really great sense of impact there.
Makes sense that she would feel the impact too.
Right. And that's a point actually I wanted to make as well.
Yeah.
And here, for the first time, we see a new mechanic in the game, right? Where it's not just our heroine.
Yes.
She's able to scout these enemies, something familiar Ubisoft fans might know. But now she's deploying her little kick-ass sidekick, right? So you mentioned before that her size, and that's immediately that came to my mind. It makes so much sense for this character to sneak around because she's not this hulking 6 foot, the mountain from Game of Thrones, but the female version. She's this lady, and I'm pretty sure she's going to have integrity and faculty of her own to overcome any challenges. But she doesn't necessarily need to be strong in a way that a guy is strong. You know, a perfect example to give you, and I'll pass it over to you. In the Tomb Raider remake trilogy, which I actually enjoyed as an original fan, but what happens in the original game, the remake, we see one scene where Lara Croft is being overpowered by this man and she barely survives the assault, but she is forced to kill him, and we kind of sympathize with her. But literally 30 minutes after, she becomes Rambo. Like, just killing dudes left and right. And we know that the story prior to that explains to us that she is a neophyte explorer. She doesn't know anything about the real world out there. And it kind of like took me out of the experience a little bit, even though I enjoyed it. So I hope the case here is going to be that she's the kind of person that is smart and resourceful and relies on wit and sharp shooting and other elements, that she doesn't necessarily have to fill the mold. I can do everything that the guy can do, like a lady boss type of character. I really don't want that.
I think so. In general, I think you know we've had the experience in Star Wars of really powerful protagonists. So Force Unleashed, you know, Jedi, Cal Kestis in Survivor and Fallen Order, where you feel extremely powerful. You're a Force wielder. You have different lightsaber stances, etc. So I do like the idea that in this game we're going to have the ability to try to solve problems in a different way, right? We're gonna solve it more like a normal human would in this situation, right? I don't have the Force. If it was me out there, I'd probably be trying to sneak around, punch people in the face, or using a gun as well, right?
Yeah.
So I do like that sort of vulnerability of, hey, I'm just an average person out here. Like, I'm just figuring it out. I'm not, you know, a Force user. I'm not some sort of robotic enhanced. I'm not some sort of like Mandalorian chained from birth. I'm just an average person out here. So I really do. I like the different kind of feel that should bring to the game in a gameplay sense. Because again, if I want to go feel super powerful, I have games that can do that. And that's great too. But if ever, we don't want every game to follow that mold, or it'll get a little stale. So when it comes to her in this situation, you know, using the buddy system, I really hope there is diversity in what you can do with the buddy, for example. I hope it's not like, okay, you can send the buddy up and turn the power off, and then it doesn't do. Like, I would like it where there's really options to solve problems. You know, there are a lot of games that like Dishonored, for example, would be really, really clever in how you could use stealth or use distractions. I love that sort of freedom, especially again with a character who's just normal. They're just a normal person, right? I don't know how old she's supposed to be, but she's just a normal.
Looks like early 20s.
I was gonna say like young 20s, mid 20s. We'll say 25-ish. Yeah. I mean, she's out there against big alien creatures. Like, she should be really inventive in problem solving, and I love to fill that, to play that way, right? Because again, it aligns up with what I'd be doing out there. So I actually hope that we have a lot of options, a lot of freedom in our choices and kind of the actions we take. Yeah.
And just a quick note before we move on is I'm not fully discarding the fact that she isn't a Force user. Because, again, it happens oftentimes when they introduce this concept to you, but they sort of want to kind of play it safe, as we know Ubisoft has been doing with their Assassin's Creed games. They've kind of like filled the mold, one of the each consequent game. And later on, they might reveal to you that she's indeed force sensitive. And if you want that lightsaber experience, you might as well go for it, because we want to cover all our bases. And I really don't want this to be the case.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I really enjoy, and I kind of alluded to this already. I like games where I feel vulnerable, where I feel like I don't want to get caught, or I need to be very tactical with how I engage this person. To me, it enhances the journey, right? I'm not saying I love like the hardest Dark Soul games played on. I'm not saying that. I do like when I feel a general sense of, oh, I could die here. Not just like, I can run around shooting behind, whatever. After a while, I don't feel a lot of weight to what I'm doing. So I appreciate it if they actually make us have to think when we play through it.
Gotcha. And we're going to see actually some footage here. So let's move on. Now we see K-Vess using her wits, intelligence, and of course her sidekick. And this little sequence here, right?
I'll tell you, it seems like he could have attacked or he could have turned the power on. So that right there is like, okay, maybe this never would have happened. What we see right here never happens if I don't take the hit the button route. So yeah.
And one small piece of criticism I have already here. This was my first point that was kind of dubious. So like, I don't know yet. She hits this button, right? Let's go back just a little bit.
Yeah.
The creature hits the button and she jumps on this rack or this box. And all of the sentries, they're none the wiser. Like, nobody's paying attention. This is like pieces, like conveyor belts suddenly moving. And I'm telling myself, okay, I'm willing to excuse this because perhaps this is part of the tutorial of the game. They're kind of like showing you what this is all about. But in the future encounters of the similar sort, I hope the sentries, they respond quick and they're like, huh, what is this? And you get like a little Metal Gear exclamation mark, huh? Who's out there? And they go explore and figure out who's there. And they pick behind the corner, the shadows trying to find you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That goes to my point of like, you want to feel you have to be smart. You can't just be like walking around in the open. I'm with you. I tend to think this might be like the first 5-10 minutes. Like, hey, it's how you play. Here's the mechanics. So it might just be babying you a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of babying. I don't mind at all, especially keeping in mind for somebody, this could be very well their first video game ever. So they need to learn the mechanics. And
that's right. And these Star Wars games have wide appeal.
Yeah, exactly.
To casual fans.
So she's sneaking around here. We don't need to talk about graphics much because it's absolutely mind-blowing, from shadows, from the different light sources, ambiance. It's just fantastic. So she was sneaking around, and right away here, right, she's being discovered. So very, very cool. I did not see a lot of visual cues of saying like, oh, by the way, you're about to get discovered. It sort of makes you rely on your sight, on the 3D world around you, and like survey the area. And she actually is being discovered here, which is quite kind of interesting. Let's see how she deals with her first challenge. Right, and now we're into full swinging action. She's jumping behind covers, she's moving around, and she's shooting. But let's trace back just a little bit and check out that very first shootout that she has. I specifically want to draw your attention to the animation. My man, she shoots from the hip like a damn pro. And once again, it shows you, it's revealing about the sort of character that she is. She's sneaky, she's resourceful, she's smart. And at the same time, she's not your Rex kind of like ex-soldier, super military gal who's going to immediately start kicking ass. She has to rely on quickness and to have that quick draw. What are your thoughts there?
I love it. I wonder if that's a mechanic. Like Red Dead Redemption has like a quick draw mechanic where you can, almost slow time. That's a really satisfying mechanic. I'd love it if they did something like that in here, where you could do like a reaction. If you get found and do your reaction quick enough, you could actually shoot them like this. I love that kind of feeling. It's such a old West badass kind of thing to do. So I'm a huge fan. I hope it actually plays in. I hope you can actually do it.
That would be awesome. I mean, if it's an Outlaw game, you got to have your standouts and your duels via, the Book of Boba Fett and so forth. I can always close my eyes and see like an Assassin's Creed type of like skill tree where it's something of this sort that you can perhaps enhance it and begin to slow time later on. Yeah,
like a gunslinger tree almost. I'd like that.
All right, we're moving on. Let's just see like a little bit of just action going on here uninterrupted. She's running around. Stuff is exploding around her in real time. There's a lot of particle effects going on there as well as this. All right, so she's trying to shoot this guy down, right? He takes out his vibro shield or this whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And now she had to switch her ammo to be able to pierce it and get in close for that finishing move.
Yep.
So once again, it's showing us that it's not going to be just your straightforward third-person shooter. There'll be times we have to get in close and get some action happening there. Like we have, obviously, the first hit she got on the Pike soldier, she basically struck him in the face with a full-blown fist. And here, once again, she has to get in close. I kind of like that.
Yeah. And to your point, you said a second ago, I could see like skill trees with different types of ammo or disarm effects. Like maybe you could go down more of a like grenade path as like a stun or whatever. Yeah. What I do, one thing I'll say is when I look at something like this, the gameplay, I'm mainly focused on the mechanics, not necessarily the speed or the tempo, because to me, this is a technical demo.
Right.
They're like, hey, look, here are the systems. So like kind of the flow, how quick she moves, etc., is less important to me as them kind of telling me what the game experience is going to be like. So, some of this, it looks like a little bit like a first-time player just booted up the game. They're a little clunky in their movement, but I'm not worried about that as much as I am the actual what are the mechanics that they're trying to show here. Yeah. I will say when she slowed there for a second and switched between her abilities, I have a feeling that'll probably be more extensive. There was only like 3 things, and I'm sure again that's just for either this is the opening tutorial and you only have 3 things, or they haven't fully finalized all of them and they're like, okay, look at 3 of them. There's a focus blast or whatever. So,
yeah. Oh, they aren't showing us.
But I do like where I was going with that before I forget is I do actually like those kind of quick swap mechanics where you can switch between what you're doing. I like the subtle slow, like it's not like you have to hit pause. It's like slow. Okay, now I'm switching my ammo, or in Cal's case, I'm switching my blade stance. I do like that kind of that flow, right? That fluid kind of action where you're not just like taking a pause. You can quickly navigate.
Yeah, and it's a perfect idea of just putting you in that world. We're gonna see it later on when she's like charges her ship up and just basically flies away, where they're showing it to you via animations versus just like a simple button where you press in game and box opens or case unloads or something like that. Anyway, she's having her shootout here throughout the Pike infested hangar. Obviously we see they are collaborating with the Empire to some capacity. We see like some dismantled TIE fighters, right? She has a little bit of shootout. Look at these particle effects, man. Of course, blasters bolts are like flashing everywhere.
It looks like Star Wars.
Yeah, it looks and feels like Star Wars. It really puts you literally behind her shoulder. You feel like you're there with her on this adventure. The camera work, I think, is absolutely fantastic. Look at this. She's bringing heavier guns. Love the sound effects with the blasting and shooting. It just really is larger than life, has that grand feel. I have a little point here. I'm going to pause. We see now gadgets at work, right? She uses that hook, the descent. Right away, my first thoughts are, oh, thank God she's not a Spider-Man. Thank God she doesn't have all the tools in her box and she just can do everything. Yes, she has the hook, but you have to cast it, you have to throw it there, you have to wait to descend. It's once again, it shows you that she's not a jack of all trades. She has to descend, and only then she'll get to her next skill, that is part of her trade.
Yeah. I want it to feel like me. Like I'm out there. Like that's what I would do. And heck, with my upper body strength, I probably couldn't even do that. But the idea is I could, because you're right. Like I think, and I don't want to misconstrue what I'm saying as a complaint, because I love in Jedi Survivor. You haven't played it yet. The one thing I love about it is you don't reset as Cal Kestis. I'm like, okay, you forgot everything from the first game. You're an idiot now. You start off at a pretty good power level and you have the ability to wall run and leap and climb. Like that all fits. He's a Jedi in training. He's a Jedi, he's been for 4 or 5 years now. He should be able to move like that. This individual is just a human. They're just like me. Kay is out there. She should not feel like Cal Kestis when I play her. She should feel totally fresh. So I'm with you. I like the fact that she jumped and just like lowered herself down. Did like do a backflip, roll down.
Yeah, exactly. She's not super acrobatic. It shows a different set of skills and talents that she will need to rely to. And what I really enjoyed about this trailer is that they're communicated pretty well.
Yeah. Yep, so I agree.
In the next sequence that we're going to watch, the chase scene, I want you to pay attention to, we spoke about earlier that we enjoy open worlds, right? And here we're looking at just graphical fidelity of all the, surrounding area. When you look at the draw distances and you look at all the vegetations and how it reacts to wind, how it reacts to her, chase, how everything is just feels so alive. Look at this. We see sand, we see like little rocks just blasting into the air as they try to shoot her down. Look how far and crispy we could see into the distances, man.
I like the look of this planet in general.
Yeah. This has a very interesting look where there's some vegetation, but it still like projects a little bit of that deserty like kind of feel, like savanna. And it's not exactly Tatooine, so you can't really complain. It's like, oh my god, another desert planet. It's something different.
So that mechanic she did right there is exactly what I was alluding to earlier with the Red Dead, right? That's how it feels. It's like that. I forget what they call it, quick draw, whatever, but you can like deep, 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 deep. I love that mechanic. It's so much fun. So
yeah. So obviously we have a very kinetic chase scene. She's going pretty damn fast. I don't see any pop-up in the background. Everything looks super solid. So if one thing that Ubisoft, and obviously the company who made this, right, Massive, they've done the what's the name of the 2 games that I'm thinking of, the post-apocalyptic games. Oh my god, this thing escapes my mind.
Let's see. What are their big games?
Right.
They've done the Division.
Both Division 1 and 2. Those are the biggest games. Both my uncle and my brother are huge fans of. And if we know that's one thing they can handle is huge open worlds.
Yes. Yep.
As we see our heroine approach the city, we can already take into full detail of it and like see different parts of the buildings here and there, and already gives us a sense like, oh my god, this is a really populated planet. You see like different
I like that.
People are like flying back and forth. Like it's a really living and breathing world. I really love the sense of architecture. Kind of reiterates a little bit of Tatooine-ish sort of like atmosphere there with the buildings designs there, but yet again it feels like Star Wars, right?
That's right. Yeah, it looks, again, like you said, I love the mix of the kind of savanna with like a little more greenery. I like that there's the mountains kind of engaging your eye in the distance. You feel like, well, I want to go out there and look what's in the mountains, or there's secrets in there for me to discover. It just draws you in, that sort of familiar but unexplored.
Yeah, and it looks like our scooters are hoop bikes picked up some speed from the book of Boba Fett. We're going a little faster.
Different laws here.
Yeah. All right, so she lands. Once again, it's seamless. Pretty awesome.
Love how the wind, it looks like kind of a harsher planet.
Yeah, kind of like feels a frontier.
Yep.
Like Western kind of like feel to it.
Exactly. Yep.
Look at the creature laying down there just chilling. No load screens, right? As we want to expect from our current generation games. And we are in a cantina, right? We get like a little visual cues there. We have a little signs there, neon signs, and obviously the counter. And we see our second sidekick.
You're late, Kay. Doc is waiting.
You're late, Kay. Doctor is waiting. Obviously, we recognize the droid model, right? These are assassin droids from the prequel trilogy and the Clone Wars TV show. What are your thoughts on the second sidekick?
It's fun. Star Wars has time and time again, like the lovable android sidekick, right? It's a trope, but hey, if it ain't broke, you have to. What I like about this trope in a way though, is it does make sense in the future, in the sci-fi setting, that robot companions would be perfect for bounty hunters, for scoundrels, where they have an additional lack of vulnerability that you have, right? And so they'd be very valuable on a team as you're doing missions, as you're doing things. They'd be extremely valuable partners to have, which is why you see like time and time again, droids used as bounty hunters, droids used in this sense. So I always like it. It's fun to get the commando droid kind of call back, because the reason I like this is it makes a lot of sense. And Survivor plays with this. The Clone Wars Bad Batch plays with this, where it's like, what did they do with all those droids from the Separatists? It totally makes sense that they would just get picked up in the black market and reprogrammed and all of that. So it's one of those things that, it connects. It connects to the Clone Wars, but it connects in a way that makes a ton of sense. Like, they'd be using these droids. I mean, they wouldn't just be like, in the last 20 years, all those droids, every single Separatist droid just is gone. No, people would be taking them, and especially in the black market, reusing them. So I like the fit.
What I really enjoy about this one, I forgot his name, guys. Sorry about this, but he feels like there is a history to him, from his trench coat, from the way he speaks to her, There's a sense of autonomy about him. And we obviously know that droids are sentient beings in this galaxy.
Yep.
And it feels like I really want to learn more about history, where he comes from, and where he gets this like just this bossy, raw attitude to him, right? He's more of a person than ever before. The coat, the trench coat alone. But once again, the character design is perfect because it's so simple and so thought-provoking. It's like, where did he get this? Like, he's not overly designed.
Yep.
And we're moving on here.
You worried?
No.
Okay.
They have a little chit-chat there, something that she's about to pick her earnings from the mission, right? Something that you would expect from
She can't be trusted.
a scoundrel kind of like story. She's like, okay, you can't trust this woman. So this kind of like negotiation is going to go down. It's like, hey, I need my cut. I'm about to bounce out of here. And the character that we meet was a little bit unexpected for me. Obviously, got a Trandoshan there. A Mon Calamari, part of a syndicate, real boss-looking lady, and it's a female. I don't believe... We had briefly like one female Mon Calamari in the sequels, I believe, like for a short span of a second, but not much. Like, what are your thoughts on this character?
I'm trying to think. There was the Clone Wars arc where they had like the Mon Calamari war with the
right.
I'm trying to think
with
if
the
we saw any...
Separatist army when Dooku invades the Mon Calamari and young Akbar tries to like liberate
That's
it.
right. Yeah. Well, regardless, I always, hey, look, it's a recognizable Star Wars species, right? This is an iconic I consider this an iconic Star Wars faction group.
Agreed.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And so, it makes sense to me. We see them in kind of a different capacity, right? Like out of the water into the desert as a crime lord. I'm cool with it. I like, again, it's an iconic Star Wars, like Trandoshans, like Wookiees. They're just uniquely Star Wars. You can't think of Star Wars without thinking of any of those races. So sticks out to me.
I was just a bit taken aback because they always are projected in the expanded universe books as the good guys. I'm just like, she's here.
They're the good guys.
Like, okay, this is a good change up. I really love how they are playing around with these familiar ideas and reinventing them just a bit, just enough.
And not to spend too much time on it, but this is the time of the Empire, right? This is in between Empire Strikes Back. So like a lot of people who were good guys might be having to make their own, morality becomes a little more gray in times of war, right? That was one of the things about Andor, right? So,
desperate time, desperate measures. Yeah, absolutely. Agree.
Fits the setting.
Still like my odds.
He's talking about the odds, obviously.
K-Vess.
Voice acting obviously is on point. The presentation in this game is just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Just a friend.
We see a little bit of intrigue here where part of the Empire is unofficially under the table. They're conducting shady business with the Outlaw world, which is obviously a very known trope that we're familiar with.
Hey, you little toys.
What's up with this very exotic piece? There's like shell-like, pearl-like things, which we have no idea what this is, right?
Yeah, we don't. I like it though. It's intriguing.
So this gives me that idea once again of Indiana Jones, like, artifacts or unknown things. Like, what the heck is this?
Well, and in both Uncharted and Indiana Jones, they don't stray away from like some fantasy elements, which I always really appreciated about those two genres.
Moving there.
They're invested.
Like the costumes, the way that the creatures are costumed in this game, for some reason reminded me of Witcher 3, where it's fantastical. Where obviously we're comparing sci-fi to more like medieval fantasy, but it feels very believable and very like history rich, and you almost like meet a person when you see their appearance.
Yeah.
With syndicates, I could say you're a threat to the Empire.
All right.
I'd have to.
So they're trying to basically extort her, right, and make her pay. And this is the point where you and I have talked about, where it seems to give us some sort of a choice. So right away I'm going to jump in and say, I don't want this to be gimmicky gameplay mechanic. I don't want this to be just for the sake of different dialogue option and then 5 minutes later it's forgotten. I want this to alter missions in a significant way, because when I think of open world, I don't need 2,500 menial tasks. Give me 3 memorable missions. And bringing back Witcher 3 into this discussion, they last with you. They stay with you long after you finish the game.
I will tell you, to your point, the systems like this that are done well are systems that change the entire game. Like the complexity is high for things like this, but when
Yeah.
I make a decision, I want it to affect the gameplay loop. I want to be like, okay, something has been closed off to me. I had a real choice. It took a real sacrifice to do whatever I want to do. I don't need to do both, even though I told this character bribe.
Mhm.
And, Cyberpunk, I tend to be more of a fan of Cyberpunk than a lot of people, given its kind of launch woes. I still
I
played it and
love
really,
this
really
game
liked
as
it.
well. Yeah.
I did too. I loved it. And one of the things I really liked about Cyberpunk is like towards, there were decisions you made that affected final boss missions or your ending together. And I remember as I was getting close to the end, like I really had liked my character and I had really liked how I had done it. Like the love interest I ended up with, whatever, like I had lined things up really well. And so there towards the end, I was really nervous about like, okay, if I do this with Johnny, am I going to end up dead? Like what are my real options here? And that really, I remember like, oh, I don't want to get to the end of the game and I blow it because I took this option and I get my character killed or something.
Yeah.
And that to me is when a system like this is executed really well.
Mhm.
To your point, if it's like bribe and then she says something different and then the end is exactly the same, that is not the sort of decision making that I really like. I want to feel. I think of those games like Detroit Become Human. There's other games in that genre, Heavy Rain. And then there's the horror game one. I love those kind of chat-based games where like your decisions matter.
Right.
Obviously, we know the studio behind Heavy Rain and Detroit Become Human has a Star Wars game on their backlog, which is why that's been one of my most anticipated, is because I really do love games like that where you feel ramifications. So that's a long answer. I really do, to your point, hope it's not just simple text prompts that have no consequence. If there's real gameplay impacts, I'm in. I really enjoy that kind of system.
Yeah. And we actually are going to see some ripple effects here, maybe not to the significant effect that fans are hoping, but obviously it's just a snippet of the game. And you and I are both sort of playing devil's advocates. A lot of things that we're talking about is not something to worry about. It's just us discussing it.
Yeah. No, of course.
So she obviously makes a choice. Do not bribe.
Thanks.
That's a choice I would make. She's like,
You pay the
get out of my
tax
face.
just like everyone else.
Whoa, kid. Let's
I
just
honestly
relax.
thought the shootout is going to happen here.
I like her
Nothing happens.
gun, by the way.
Gun, that's the reason I paused here. Just a very quick note here. The gun is absolutely fantastic. Very in lore, very believable, just like awesome looking.
I love that. Yep.
Yeah.
You won't make it off to Shara alive. Maybe.
All right. And now we're about to see the effects of her decision. I also really enjoyed that the Imperial this time around is a female, and it doesn't feel like they're trying to fill a quota. It's a very natural thing. It's one woman dealing with another woman, and there's a very tense moment indeed, and you don't even think about it. It's so natural and organic, and obviously we get
the wanted system.
Wanted system. That's what you've been talking about. This is the effects of our choices there. Perhaps if we were more lenient or more obedient with the Imperials, maybe later on another mission pops up. Often there was like, hey, we relied on this outlaw before. Maybe we can give her another mission.
That's right. Like maybe you can get different mission trees. Like you can actually work for the Empire in some of your missions versus not. Yep.
Yeah, like Elder Scrolls series, join different factions. Excellent point.
Yep.
Could be.
Feels like could be all right. I gotta get to my ship. And this, to me, this is what knocked it out of the park for me as far as this gameplay footage goes. I was praying to the gods of Star Wars, to the Force itself, to have a game like this where you actually walk inside of your ship, presentation-wise, hop behind your controlled deck, and just take off, man. This is absolutely fantastic. We haven't seen anything like this. This is No Man's Sky repeated via Star Wars. Look at this.
Yep.
And
I love that you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I love that you can control it. I mean, I love that you can fly. Like.
This seems like a disguised little moment of preloading because obviously we're seeing graphical fidelity that I mean rivals even the recently released Starfield game. This absolutely looks phenomenal graphically. And now we're in space. Looks like this control over your ship is going to be more on the arcadey style. They're not gonna burden you with more like sim-like controls. What do you personally prefer?
I've always found space travel to be kind of a challenge in the sense that I think of Squadrons, which came out recently, which was, I mean, that was as close as you're going to get to Star Wars flight sim, right? It was hard at certain intervals, like that sort of disorienting emptiness of space, plus all your weapon systems. I'm not expecting that from a game like this, right? What I would love in a game like this is that ship customization. I'd like that I could personalize the ship, make it my own, especially if I'm actually going to be using it to travel from planet to planet. Minor tweaks. Like, I'm not expecting this to be, again, an actual Star Wars ship sim. I can go play Squadron.
Right, great point.
So I would like simple tweaks, like you can upgrade this part, which changes your weapon style or how fast you move or your armor. And if you're a little tankier, maybe you can do some more like scavenging or something, like little things like that, I think are enough for me, because I'm expecting this is a supporting mechanic to the game. Like I don't think this is a core mechanic. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. So I don't mind the more arcadey style handling, given what I expect this piece of the game is relatively minor.
Yeah. And I think ship upgrades opens up an opportunity for excellent in-story outlaw related missions where like, hey, I need to get that new hyperdrive, which is black market. I gotta like infiltrate that Imperial, hangar bay and like just steal it or something of the sort, or get a new weapon upgrade, which plays perfectly into this kind of setting, into this story.
Even something cosmetic, like I've reached a status of bounty hunter. Like I have some acclaim. I have a certain special logo on my ship that other bounty hunters know, or other, black market people know. Like I've done some things, I love then to take it back to another Ubisoft game, Black Flag, Assassin's Creed Black Flag. I liked how there were missions about like pirate acclaim, where certain like costumes or ship, whatever, was like, I found all this treasure, like that was my suit. So like, I'd love that kind of thing here. Whereas like, if I raid enough temples or, destroy enough ships, I get like a little bit of a mark. I like that kind of thing. So
part of my flight ship of like fantasy, as far as this goes, it doesn't have to be more Sims style, but I do want to see either more crew members or at least passengers that I travel with, that I transport, and you really feel like a captain piloting your ship and other people are relying on you.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, we're moving on. We're about to finish with this, guys. So now we're going to see a little bit of space combat, which feels sharp. The ship feels quite maneuverable. It's not an X-Wing. It's not going to be super fast, but she's able to handle it and destroy a couple of TIE fighters there. Crazy amount of debris in space. Look at the level of details here. I mean, it's something that obviously it's already advertised as perhaps smaller than Starfield in terms of scope. But in terms of like visual presentation, maybe this is what we need. Maybe fewer planets, but this kind of like world that you feel like, oh my god, where's part 2? I want to finish this game, enjoy the 40+ hour storyline, and just then give me more.
Yeah, I'd rather be a full interactive section of space and it's all empty and I just fly around doing nothing.
Right. This is a signature going into the hyperspeed mode, right? Which traveling this hyper lane, and something really interesting happens here. We arrive to our destination quite fast.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's in lore or not. What were your thoughts there? Like, did you expect to have like a more prolonged kind of travel where characters get the chance to banter?
I wonder if if this is a demo feature or a reality feature. It's hard to say, right? What are they trying to like, what, because she didn't even put in her we didn't even see the user input where they were going in hyperspeed. So I imagine like there's steps we missed just for this demo, if that makes sense.
That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. So as much as we're trying to be, play both sides of the fence, it's hard to tell here.
Because I do wonder, like, in using Starfield or No Man's Sky as an example, like No Man's Sky, if you see a planet, you can fly to it.
Yeah.
And so I have a feeling there'll be some of that where it's like, hey, I'm going to fly over here. But if I'm switching galaxies, do I have to like pre-program that in? So that'll be interesting kind of mechanic they have to play. So we'll see. But
what's a decent number of planets in a sense that are fully fleshed out with like bustling cities and missions for you as far as that goes? What would you take in terms of number? I'd say give me 5-6 planets that are with this stuff with Sign and Trail. I'm good, man.
5 was right where my mind was at, because I think 5 is probably again, I want them to be fun to go to. Like, I don't want to be like, hey, we went to 20 planets and everyone has like one cantina and it's the same sort of talking and there's no difference. Starfield's as another example, because this was kind of teased in the same event. They're saying 1,000 planets. And woo, that would be breathtaking. But the reality is probably, they're doing a lot of procedural generation, but the reality is there'll be probably 1 or 2 planets with a really interactive, crazy cities.
Mhm.
The other ones will be more of environmental kind of exploration.
Resource gathering, yeah.
Exactly. And I don't think this game is going for that. So if that's the case, just give me 4 or 5 really well done planets,
Yeah.
with really fun factions and geography and things to do, and I'll feel quite rewarded, I think.
Yeah, and before we move on, very quick point here. The planets, to me, when I play these like science fiction video games, the part of the fantasy that really opens up a planet to you and makes you feel like this is a grand adventure, even if it's a single planet, where instead of just pointing on the globe and going to the destination, give me several points. Procedurally generate like wildlife around the planet where I go to different spots. Then I really feel like, oh my God, this game is just unfathomable, even with 4 planets.
It's real freedom. It feels like real freedom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We made it.
So she made it to her Akiva orbit.
I love that little.
Yeah.
It's so Star Wars. That little yellow.
Yeah. The
great.
fonts, the graphical presentation is just awesome. We're back to our cockpit. Little Nyx creature, which is absolutely fantastic, adorable.
Got your new
I have a feeling that Pearl will come in handy in the story later on. It's probably more significant than we
Where do we
believe.
go next?
Anywhere we want.
Anywhere we want.
Yep.
All right.
I like the music here a lot.
Yeah.
Towards the end.
Yeah, fantastic music there.
Oh, this is gorgeous right here.
Yeah,
Yep.
look at this. When they're talking about bustling cities and talking about shootouts,
Yep.
you're gonna feel like a space cowboy for sure, I think. Obviously, the Empire is gonna at some point come in and ruin your plans and be a part of it as well, right?
Yep.
Look at this. Does that look a little bit like Takadana?
Yep.
This has some Coruscant vibes, which they have not talked about whether you go to Coruscant or not, right?
Yeah, I have not that I've heard.
She's
The
kicking
planet
some
everyone wants to
Imperials.
go to.
Yeah.
Star Wars Outlaws.
Boom.
You know, one thing that came to me there as
Mm-hmm.
it wrapped, it just dawned on me. I wonder, I think it'd be really fun if you could up or lower your standing with a certain faction.
Right.
Like you could almost align yourself with the Pikes versus the Hutts versus the, I really would like that.
Yeah. You're
that would
thinking
be,
basically Elder Scrolls mechanics
Yeah.
where it's not just you operating in the underworld. It's like you, depending on how you rub off with different factions and what's going to happen there next. Josh, so we basically gave our thoughts on this game. Do we have to say in closing? What are our hopes and what are our biggest concerns that we hope this game doesn't fall into?
anyone who's watched me, you know, or a lot of folks, I think you included, has heard the request, get away from the original trilogy, get away from the Skywalker saga, let's go somewhere else. Like it can feel like you're so confined from a storytelling perspective where you have to make it fit in the known. You have less freedom. It's something you might think you're going to do something minor, but it opens up holes in the canon somewhere else. So my first reaction when I was like, oh, it's going to be here, was a little bit of disappointment. It was like, oh man, we're going to be stuck from a narrative perspective, not doing anything new. But I'll tell you, after watching the trailer, after seeing what they have to show, I feel a lot better about the direction. Again, I'll use Andor as an example. I think Andor was phenomenal. And what I loved about it is it just felt like this is what it was like to live in the age of the Empire, right? This is not what like the heroes, the Bad Batch or Luke or whoever was experiencing at that higher level. These were the day-to-day battles, the day-to-day struggles to survive. And so if this is going to showcase more of that, then I think it actually could be very, very rewarding. So that was my, I think, biggest concern, and still a little bit, right? I don't want it to feel very samey. Like, okay, I've seen a lot of these planets. I've heard this story. But it seems from what we've seen so far, you're going to be interacting with the galaxy in a very different way.
Yeah.
And so I'm encouraged. I will have to continue to see another thing I'm really looking for is what the skill trees look like. What am I leveling with my character? Like what are the cool things I can do from a gameplay
RPG
perspective?
mechanics, right?
Exactly. Like what can I do to keep me coming back and want to log in? I think Survivor did a phenomenal job with that. And most recently as an example where there was enough styles and variations and ways I could tackle problems that I felt like never stale, never bored. And so I want to know more there. But from an early look, I love Kay. I think she looks phenomenal. I like the environments they've teased. So I kind of went in a little bit like, oh man, we're doing this again, to like, okay, this does look this is better than I was thinking. I'm actually excited to dive into maybe some new side of the galaxy here. So that's kind of where I've landed.
Yeah. With me, I was immediately drawn to this game because I was dreaming about a game like this where you play an outlaw and playing, in this underworld and meeting all these characters and hopefully flying from planet to planet. And I was blown away by all the gameplay footage they showed. I always enjoyed strong female leads in video games, as long as they're not trying to, once again, just repeat and be like, lady boss, look, I can do everything you can do. You can project strength and character and integrity through so many different means. And this is what they're tapping into here. She's a smuggler. She's quick with her tongue and her mind. She's fast sharpshooter. She's doing things that we haven't seen before. It's a different way, a unique way of showing strength and interest in character than before. My only concern is that they don't go the route of more. Let's give you like what Assassin's Creed has become. As much as I enjoy the newer games, it's every piece of the map is just populated with the same repeating junk that you forget about, you don't remember. Like, how many camps can you go through in Assassin's Creed Origins before you start like, yawning and falling asleep? So I really hope it's a more guided experience that takes a few pages from Knights of the Old Republic, from the other choice making games like Mass Effect, where there's real reward that's maybe perhaps in a smaller world, smaller gameplay hours, maybe 40 hours, but you really feel that you want to replay it and see all little behind the corner, like every nook and cranny of this game, and see what it has to offer with a new gameplay start. Like with the
it's that tension of quality quantity. You prefer better quality than the quantity of just things to do, and I agree with that. And I hope this is going to be, again, they went in a way different direction than I thought. I was thinking they were going to do some sort of like, you're a Jedi or a Sith and you hop from planet to planet doing side missions, and I think in a lot of ways this might be a better way to go because we haven't really done this yet. So I'm very excited. I'm 2024, they said. I'll believe it when I see it with games. They're always a little bit delayed. But from what we know today, I think this has Star Wars games have been on a tear recently. I know you haven't beat Survivor yet, but they've been really doing some good work. Even the Lego Star Wars game was really, really fun. So Squadrons, Lego Star Wars, Survivor, Fallen Order. Recently, it's been a lot of hits. So they're gaining some momentum. I hope they keep it up with this.
Yeah. And my last thoughts are, before we say goodbye, guys, is that as a fan of Star Wars Legends, this once again is a perfect opportunity to have something more than just a cameo and bring Shadows of the Empire characters like Prince Shizor. But if you're going to go that route, which I'm completely fine if they're not going to pursue that and just stick to their own guns, but if you indeed are going to bring somebody, a character that fans are, love and know and cherish from before, do it in a way that is consistent with your vision. Do it in a way that is just more of like a check mark. Oh, by the way, here's a small Easter egg. Yourself, I'm still on the lookout. I'm still a little bit wary, and I hope to go the direction where it doesn't try to just check all the boxes and tries to have one single vision of what it wants to do.
We're going to butt heads with the Empire. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
I just don't want, in the end, it turns out that, we were actually stealing the plans for the second Death Star. It's like, okay, well, that's, that's fine. But it's okay to just live the life of the Empire. Not everyone in the era of the Empire was a hero fighting the Empire. Some people were just surviving. I think it's okay to just be a survivor, pun intended, but I think it's okay to just be someone who's figuring it out versus one of the heroes. I think that's
taken.
a cool,
absolutely
cool look. So I'm hoping for that.
Well, Josh, it's been absolutely awesome to have you back. Maybe somehow behind the desk, in the shady corner on the black market, we get to cross paths again and I get to look into my podcast. But I'm hyped about the game. I hope, it's going to come out to be everything that each one of us hopes it is. And, hopefully we have something different, a topic I'll find. I was like, hey, Josh, you want to stop by? That's right. Chat with me again. Really miss you. Give my regards to Jimmy and hope to see you again, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm excited too. Looking forward to it.
Take care, guys. We'll see you later.
See ya.
Thank you, Josh.
All right. Nice.
Awesome. You got to run, right?
Good. Yeah, I got to run here in a second. But I think it looks good. I mean, I'm excited. It wasn't what I was thinking,